Most people think they are bad at communicating. They spend years trying to speak better, sound smarter, and present in a polished way. But none of that is the actual problem. See, the real issue happens before you say a single word, and fixing it takes about 10 seconds. I know you may not believe me, but just keep watching because here's what's actually going on. Everything you want to say makes perfect sense inside your head, right? But the person that is in front of you doesn't have your experience, your context, or your assumptions. So when you start talking, they're already behind. Unknowingly, you skip steps. You start explaining how to do something before you ever explain why it matters. More importantly, why it matters to them. And when that happens, those people tend to walk away from the conversation confused, not because you're inarticulate or you're not a good communicator, but because you personally never stopped to figure out what that listener actually needed to hear first. So here's how to fix that if you find yourself doing it. Number one, lead with the result and not the process. See, most people open up with what they do, but listeners don't care about that. Not yet, at least. They care first and foremost about what changes for them. They care about themselves. It's all about them. Remember that when you're in conversation with other people, they care more about themselves than they care about you. It may be selfish, but it's real and it's true. So that means you should start with the outcome in one sentence and then explain how you can get there. Now, let's talk about number two, which is you got to start from where they are and not from where you are. That's something that is pivotal. A lot of people miss that. I actually want to repeat that one because it's so important. You need to start the conversation from where they are and not from where you are. See, you've been living inside your idea for weeks or maybe even longer than that, but they're hearing it for the very first time. So before you speak, ask yourself one simple question. What don't they know yet? Let me repeat that. The question you want to ask yourself is, what don't they know yet? See, asking yourself that one simple question before you start talking can become a game changer. I know it has been for me in a lot of my conversations. And you can do it in actually seconds. Like I promised, I told you before, like in as little as 10 seconds, you can ask yourself that question really quickly, and it can help you to reframe how you are showing up in every conversation that you're having. And that alone could easily start making people feel like you're a much better communicator than even you may start to believe that you are. And that's not a bad thing at all. So only after you've answered that question do you start sharing. I know it may be hard to do, but give it a chance. Try that out and see what happens. Now, before we go, let me give you one more, number three, right? Which is to stick to one idea per message. So if you're talking about one thing in particular, or if you are in, I'm not saying that you only have to talk about one thing in the entire conversation. I'm talking about in that moment. Like, let's say it's the start of the conversation. You don't want to bring up three different things or multiple things at once and send the conversation in a bunch of different directions. You want to try your best to just stick to one idea until you come to a conclusion of that discussion on that idea. And then you can pivot or move to another one, right? Because the moment you start stacking two or more thoughts together, that's when people start to tune you out. They don't do it because they're not listening or they're not interested in what you got to say. They're actually getting lost along the way because you gave them way too much information to process at once. So you got to remember to just stick to one idea at a time. That's how you keep your listener engaged and you keep them listening to you longer and wanting to continue their conversation with you a lot longer as well. And you just make them feel good when they feel like it's an engaged conversation that's not going all over the place and they can properly follow you wherever you're leading them. See, people who are good communicators, they're not more talented than you. They just do this one thing differently than you do. But that changes today, right? Yeah, it definitely changes today. So now you know how to do it too. So now you have an advantage. Now you are going to improve. Now you're going to become a better communicator. So fixing how you communicate is definitely going to be step number one. But if you're still making this one mistake, it cancels everything that you just learned in this video. So I highly encourage you to check out a video that I did called The Biggest Communication Mistake That Turns People Off. Go check that out next to make sure that you never make that mistake again. I'll catch you in that video. And until then, stay blessed. I'm Jay.